from the crypt.
Hello, boils and ghouls. Welcome to a very special interview episode of Dads from the Crypt. My name is Jason. Today, I'm talking to the director and stars of the movie Off Ramp. But first, let me tell you a story. Back in middle school, I wasn't feeling very well one day, and I ended up vomiting into a trash can in the homeroom. My dad came to pick me up, but before taking me home, we made a quick stop to Blockbuster to grab some VHS tapes. He decided it was time to expand my horizons, so he got me two 1960s classics, The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, and Easy Rider. Both quickly became personal favorites of mine, but Easy Rider had a major impression on me. The story of two hippies traveling across the American heartland on motorcycles to attend Mardi Gras after a lucrative drug deal completely captivated me. I was enthralled by its raw, realistic portrayal of countercultural outcasts, challenging authority, questioning societal norms, while rejecting conformity and materialism. The film resonated deeply with me, and of course, the killer soundtrack was a cherry on the top. The film became part of my DNA immediately. Flash forward, last summer, my co-host Jody and Mondo attended the Chattanooga Film Festival. When I asked them about their favorite movies that they saw, they both enthusiastically praised a Juggalo road trip movie called Off Ramp. I made a mental note and to watch it when it became widely available. Last week, I finally got to check it out, and I was instantly captivated by its tale of two countercultural figures journeying through the American heartland to a festival. Whether intentional or not, Off Ramp feels to me like the Easy Rider of this decade. Today, I'm thrilled to dive into this film with its writer and director, Nathan Tape, along its stars Scott Turner Schofield and Jared Bankens. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, so happy to be here.
Yeah, I'm really excited. This movie, again, like I said, as soon as I saw it, I've just been high on it the whole week. So this is really, really cool.
And absolutely, Easy Rider was definitely an influence for us, for sure. No doubt.
Yeah. So Nathan, let's start with you. Tell me the origin of this movie.
So, I wasn't a Juggalo when I started writing this movie, and basically I had this idea about Juggalos. They were really in the zeitgeist in around the late early 2000s. Kind of Vice was doing a lot of documentaries on them. There was the SNL and the Workaholics episodes, so it was kind of like a real Juggalo kind of time. And I knew about Insane Clown Posse. I had bought the Who's Going Chicken Hunting maxi cassette single when I was younger, but it wasn't exactly my thing. And then I saw this documentary called American Juggalo, and this documentary, American Juggalo, it really introduced me to the idea of the Juggalo family love, and that there was this found family element to Juggalos. And I was really touched by that. And I thought this was a really beautiful cinematic thing to have a classic road trip movie like Easy Rider, but about these Juggalos who are going to the gathering of the Juggalos, and just how important it feels to so many Juggalos. So as we kind of I had this idea. I told my old friend from undergrad, a guy named Tim Cairo, who had gone on to study screenwriting, and he was like, wow, this is a great idea. Let's work on it together. So we worked on the script for quite a long time. I kind of kept going on and off back to my day job being a gaffer in movies and television. And eventually during the pandemic, I said, okay, I got to make this movie. And we kind of quit a lot of things and made that a priority and went and made it, and really pleased with how it came out.
Yeah. Were you there at Chattanooga Film Festival for the premiere?
I wasn't. It's kind of funny because we actually played virtually for Chattanooga, which I thought was, it was kind of an interesting thing. It was actually the first time we played virtually. Most of the festivals we played, in person. And then I was really surprised to see that we won Chattanooga Film Festival, as a best film, which I thought, wow, and I think they just work a little differently. I think they kind of rely on their online audience a little bit more than some of the other festivals. And I wasn't really aware of that. And at first I kind of thought it was was like, you guys don't want me to come? Like, I mean, I'd come if you're playing it, but anyway, and in the long run, I'm really pleased that it did so well there. And, a lot of, even when I went back to the gathering this year, a lot of Juggalos told me they watched it online at the Chattanooga Film Fest. So.
Yeah, and that's one of the really cool things is Chattanooga Film Festival. It's very genre. Like they're not calling it the horror film festival or anything like that. They're kind of open to everything, but they definitely have a feel for offbeat counterculture cinema as well.
Yeah, they have great programming and really great people. I mean, I had a really nice time with Dustin and Chris and those, all those folks are really great. Number of conversations, and we all did a really cool like little interview with them where we were able to like a bunch of us were there. It was like a family reunion. That we had a cool little behind the scenes kind of chat, and great festival. Very, very happy to have played there.
Mm-hmm. So did you, in preparation for this movie while you were writing, did you attend the festival? Like, how did you dive into that culture?
Most of during the writing was like watching documentaries and behind the scenes kind of things. There's a number of documentaries out there. In addition to American Juggalo 1, there's American Juggalo 2, there's Family Underground, there's the movie Family. There's a whole bunch of like other, kind of things. I did go see Insane Clown Posse. They played in New Orleans. They did the Riddle Box 20th anniversary tour, and I went and saw them. But I didn't go to the gathering until 21 when we knew we were going to make the film. And I went to the gathering in 21 and I went to go photograph some B-roll, for, as you've seen the film, like it goes, cuts from like that kind of like nature documentary sort of B-roll of like, Juggalos at the gathering with the voiceover. So I was there photographing that, but also got to know a whole bunch of Juggalos even more intimately. There were a few that I knew ahead of time that then I kind of like expanded on and got to know even more. And really like so much happened at that last stage because all these phrases, I mean, the carnival provides, which is the hat that I'm wearing, and it's a mantra that comes back over and over in the film. I had never heard until I was at the gathering, and really truly, like, as I knew, I was like, if I'm going to make this movie, I have to go, or else I'm a poser. I can't not go. And so it really was like so amazing because that last stage really like it just really brought it all together and really kind of like coalesced everything. And it also made these characters that I had been writing for such a long time be real people. Like it showed me who they were. And I think that was a really important step because I think, before then, I mean, I still we're trying to treat them as humanely as possible, but I think it even went beyond just that,
Yeah. So did your character, so sometimes when you write characters, you have an idea of what that character is, but sometimes you meet an actor and you're like, okay, I'm going to adjust the actor for the character and vice versa. So, Scott, your performance is really, really fun. Did you have a rap background? Because you do a lot of rapping, kind of impromptu, it feels, but sometimes but it came out very naturalistic. So I was curious about that.
I do not have a rap background. I do know all the words to Ice Ice Baby though. So maybe my like lifelong practice of that and all the words to Good Vibrations by Marky Mark and the Funky Bunch.
That's good.
So actually, now all of a sudden, yes, I do have a rap background.
Vanilla Ice Juggalo, by the way. Anyway, go
ahead. Yeah, so and I really didn't know what Juggalos were. I had seen the movie Family where they kind of touched on it, but that movie is a narrative fiction movie, so I kind of just thought it was like a stand-in group. Like I really didn't understand that was a real group of people. And so when this, when the script came from my agent, it was like, wow. I mean, first of all, I was like, this is the weirdest script I've ever read in my entire life. And she was like, you don't have to do it. And I was like, no, that's a compliment. Like, I love this. And then, I was like, wow, I got to research this community. And as I researched it, I was like, oh, the way people talk about Juggalos rings a bell. It's not the same by any means, but the way that they're so sort of unfairly portrayed and people focus on the bad stuff and, people are worried about these people who are different. I'm transgender and that's how the media treats us. Right. So I instantly was like, oh, this is a group of people that I actually do have something in common with, even if I'd never heard of them before. And that really kind of sparked a love for me, for the community. And then as I really kind of dove into that world, I was like, oh, this actually feels, I got to figure out how to say this the right way. Like, watching footage of the actual gathering through like American Juggalo and some of these other ones, I felt like I was watching a pride parade.
Mm.
And what I mean when I say that is, it's all that love and acceptance and people just being who they are. Like, it just resonated so deeply for me on that level. But, you know, to your point about changing the character, another amazing thing about this script was that it came trans, and it came trans in a way that was so new, so different, so cool, so everything I wanted as a trans actor, to be able to just like step into a character and make it my own. And, you know, Nate and Tim were super generous in the ways that they allowed me to make it my own and allowed me to help them kind of navigate some things that they didn't know that they were doing that they wouldn't want to do, you know, like, and, you know, just a few things here and there. But like, it was a very much a dream role for me. And I'm very grateful that happened.
Yeah, I really love the portrayal in there. And also, I totally understand what you mean by comparing, you know, that sense of family with the Pride festival and stuff. I've taken my kids the last couple of years to Pride parades, and just for them to see, you know, these, you know, this is what family can look like too. And I really, your character cracks me up every time. I've watched it like twice in the last couple of days, and it's just like, I love I don't know if you like just drank a ton of coffee or like how you're just keeping up that like twitchy energy. It's just really impressive.
Thanks. I always say about that character, like, it felt like a spiritual visitation. But also my wife and my best friend both were like, that's like mostly you. So I guess it was that I got to be really free and liberated, you know, and both in myself, but also as an artist, to just be like, man, I'm just going to go all out on this and try stuff that I've never tried before. You know, and just see where it goes. And luckily it was good. You know?
Are you going around putting powder on your fried chicken now?
Since then I have started eating fried chicken again, but no, not with
So it wasn't one of those things where like, oh, I have to eat all this chicken for all these takes, and now I can't eat fried
I was
chicken
like,
again.
this is pretty good. I've been missing out.
All right, Jared, tell me how you came onto the project.
Well, my agent sent me, I got an email from my agent. It was it had a lookbook in there, and then all I saw was Juggalo. And I was like, and this was, you know, like what I had thought at first was like, oh man. But then I looked at the lookbook. I was like, well, let me just look at it. So I started looking at it. I was like, man, this could either be like, this could be really incredible, or this could be real bad. But then I got the script, and then I started reading that. Well, it was the sides first. Sorry, excuse me. It was the sides I got to audition with, and my friend was a friend of mine was the casting director, Hunter McHugh, and he kept texting me. He was like, "Dude, I'm telling you, man, you have to read it, please, for the love of God, just audition for it." So I was like, "Okay, I did." Man, the audition tape I did, it was first take. It was like the dialogue was so good that my brain like picked it up like that. I was just like, oh my God. As soon as I read it, I was like, I know this guy. And then I did the tape, and then I did a callback, and thankfully Nate really enjoyed it. So that's how I came on.
No, again, I looked through your IMDb's, and Jared, you tend to play like those kind of heavy, intense characters.
Yeah.
You know, I was thinking like, I distinctly remember your character in Venom, especially.
Oh yeah. No, that was fun.
Is that taxing to like be, you know, that intense?
I say it's not, but it is. Because you just don't want to be that guy. It's like, oh, this is exhausting, but really, like, it can be. But Scarecrow wasn't like he wasn't exhausting. He was a blast because like to me, I kept laughing in my head every time I would like anything I would say because I knew this guy. Like I know like he was based off of a couple of guys I grew up with. And one of them in particular, he was a kid who used to always wear this NWO shirt when we were in middle school. He was a little teeny tiny guy, and his shirts were always oversized. And man, what he taught, you always talk like this, bro. He always like talk like this before. And I was like, oh my god, that's him. That's Elmo. That's Elmo. And so that's why it wasn't as taxing for that one, but other ones tend to be like it tends to, take a toll. But this one was fun. This is absolutely easily, if not my favorite, one of my at least like top 3 favorites easily. It was a blast.
Did you I just keep thinking now, looking at you, saying that the part where you eat your sister's pinky?
Oh yeah. I had so much fun with that, dude. I loved that. Especially the because it's one of my favorite written lines out of anything that I've read was the gosh, so hardcore Scarecrow. And I'm like, this is just like it just added to me, it added the humor of it. It's like this almost like there's almost a level of self-awareness there. It's almost like he's almost there with it. Like, but he's so goofy and so silly. But to him, he's like, I'm this monster. I'm so terrifying. I'm so evil. It's like, no, you're not, bruh. No, you're not.
That's one of the things that Jared and I would always talk about too, is that like it's like we knew those guys who just think they're so hard and think they're so tough, but like thinking you're so tough like immediately makes you
funny as shit.
Right. Yeah.
It's so funny to me.
Thing of where you like think you're this fucking cool bully, and yet in the end, like it's so stupid and like and
yeah.
That's kind of what we thought. But also Jared brought a lot of like humanity to Scarecrow too, which really I think in the end makes him so interesting, that he's so like, yeah, he's terrible, but there's like he's also weak, and like that's what makes him so interesting,
Right.
I love doing that with characters. I like to make them at least I always go with like whatever my first instinct is, because thankfully it ends up being like not what the most obvious thing is. Like, no, I want you to kind of feel sorry for the guy because he is a person. Can't just do this whole, because I think, life's not black and white. And so I thought, with certain instances, to him to just be like completely broken as like the facade just goes away. And then it's like you actually see and hear how he really is, like who he really is.
Right. I mean, in the movie, they talk about the traumatic events that, a couple compounding ones that kind of made him into what he is.
And there's also, coming back to, Scott in the role of Silas too. It was one of those things that a couple fun things. One, I got the tape, and Scott does this thing that he always says was an actor's trick, but I was like, well, it worked on me. And then right at the beginning of his tape, he's like, I'm Scott Turner Schofield, and I am Silas. And I remember it forever, sitting there walking my dog, watching, watching the tape on my phone as I'm like walking the dog, and of course there's a bunch, we had all these different tapes. And Hunter, same, casting director, was like, oh, you got to see this one, it's really good. And I remember him saying that and just getting like chills and being like, oh, and then of course he followed it up with a really great performance. And it was like, oh, wow, like he's got the pathos of this, like, more than anyone else did. It's funny too, Scott, I always think about how that first tape was so much more serious than who like Silas ended up being. But it was like, it proved to me, okay, this guy's got the chops. And then as we worked on Silas too, it was like, okay, we kind of, built him, because it's so, one of the things that's so great about Silas is that he's like 89% of the time, he's like goofy. But that 11% of the time when he's heartfelt is like, that's the heart of the movie, really. It's like those moments. So anyway.
Yeah,
Well,
no, I mean,
go ahead.
So we all know those people who like just can't get their act together, but not out of malice. Just they're just sweet, but they just somehow just keep like slipping on the banana peel.
Make these choices. Yeah. No, well, it was funny too, because the sides that I got were the bedroom scene sides. And I thought that was a really interesting choice after I read the rest of the script, because it was like, oh wow, okay, like this is such a what a detour to take, you know. And then that scene ended up being, I think, all of our favorite moment of the whole thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, so I mean, you said the word detour, and I was thinking about the name of the film, Off Ramp. Like, this is an off ramp from mainline society. Even the main characters go on a literal off ramp, to kind of, it's a metaphor, and it's literal and figurative at the same time. I thought that was really interesting.
Thank you.
And also during that, I remember during the credits, it says based on actual events. And I always have to ask, especially in the movie that goes a little bit as crazy as this one, which part are based on actual events?
So there's a few. I mean, one, it's kind of a bit of a like all-encompassing statement for a lot of the things, because a lot of juggalos really did contribute their own real life stories to this, and like pieces of it. One of the main events is that there's an event that happened where a guy named Bloody Ruckus in Wisconsin, who's a juggalo, he and his buddies and whatever, they all got kind of messed up, and like they decided to cut off a girl's finger, and she actually, it was her idea. Like, she was like, whatever. And so she was like, here, cut my finger off. And they actually started, they called it Cult Shit. And that's actually the name of their like rap group now, is Cult Shit. And this became kind of legendary, that they basically ended up like cutting off this girl's finger. She willingly did it. And it was like her own thing. They unfortunately spent some time in jail for it, even though it was something she willingly did. And it's kind of some whatever. It's kind of some weird stuff there.
It was because there's a state law against self-mutilation.
And so, yeah, it's again one of these things that like, you're like, hello, bodily autonomy. What? I mean, come on, like, it's our bodies. Like,
cut your finger off,
like, go ahead. Like, you really didn't. I mean, the person was hurt, but it was her choice. Okay, and then I'll go back and tell you some more things, but I just had to put the pin on this because it's really wild. So after the movie premiered and it was finally out for a wide release, I get like a direct message on Instagram from a guy who's like, hey, was that scene based on the Bloody Ruckus thing? And I was like, yeah, it sure was. I was like, we took our own dramatic, we made it more dramatic for movies, but we took it from that. And he was like, because that guy's one of my best friends. And like, he's like, do you want to see the real videos? And so he sent me the real videos of them cutting the girl's finger off in my inbox, if anybody's interested. But he actually was like, he was like, oh, that made me like the movie even more. And he thought it was because, I mean, again, we dramatized it and made it more, like I said, they all kind of like did it together as like we're all kind of fucked up and having a good time and doing something like what we think is kind of weird, and we made it obviously a much scarier kind of thing, but that's just to dramatize it and whatever. That was the main thing that was like the real life event. But then there's a lot of real life, like other smaller real life events that are in there, and again, a lot of them come from juggalo stories. Like, I mean, for example, the sex table joke, right? The sex table joke came from, I was at the gathering and my buddy Jimmy Soda, the juggalo, he's like, oh, that couple over there, they're into weird sex stuff. Like, I heard one time they made a sex table out of us, and I was like, what the fuck is a sex table? And he's like, well, you get on all fours and people have sex on top of you. And I was like, well, that's going in the movie. And so a lot of like, it's kind of like it was like a bit of an homage to a lot of little details of things that were kind of real. I wouldn't say that all of the whole events, that's why we said based on actual events instead of inspired by a true story. It's kind of like, right, there's some sort of basis on that. And again, a lot of it's like, there's so many little details that came from juggalos and their experience that I kind of like, peppered into the story and it all made it really real. And juggalos too have responded afterwards and been like, all those little details that you put in there, they really connected with and thought was really cool because we're calling out real things. I mean, like the gathering of the Muddlos is a real thing. They one time had a gathering of the juggalos in this like old cow field, and it rained, and so basically everybody would walk around, it was just cow shit everywhere, and so the whole fucking gathering was just smelled like shit. And like so that's that. I mean, Scarecrow wasn't based on this guy, but we ended up, and it was oddly enough, we were considering casting him. There's a guy who's in American Juggalo 2 named Alexander Perkins, who goes by Less Legs, he's a freestyle rapper juggalo. and his legs were taken from him by a train. He had his legs were, you know, cut off, and is in a wheelchair. And he's like this incredible freestyle rapper. In fact, he's won most of the freestyle rap contests at the Gathering of Juggalos. I think like 11 or 12 of them he's won. And if you ever want to see American Juggalo 2, is basically about him. It's quite good. But you know, that's another one of those things that was like, I remember asking him like, hey, is this like, how real is Scarecrow to you? And he was like, oh, I've been through some of these same things myself. And like, I feel, you know, whatever. And similarly too, like Tox is like a trans juggalo who I met and was, you know, spoke to and kind of asked to like read the script and asked for their input. And they, you know, gave me some input into it. So it's like, in some ways there are a lot of like real things that happen. And a lot of it's kind of just an homage to the, I guess, the truth of who these experiences.
Yeah, no, that's what really lends movie to that level of authenticity. Like, you know, it's real. Like when you have a character named Butthole Ben that you're referencing, you know, you know what you're talking about. That's one of my favorite lines, where they're like, "You don't want to disappoint your friends, do you?" Like, no, don't want to disappoint Butthole Ben.
It's great. Great. He's a very nice guy. He's a very large fellow too.
So there literally is a Butthole Ben. That was
there
just
literally is a Butthole. He's in the movie. He has during some of the Gathering footage. You see Butthole Ben. He gives a big laugh.
Well, shout out to Butthole Ben.
Hell yeah.
Do you know if the band Insane Clown Posse has seen the movie? If they've acknowledged it or reacted to it?
Yeah. So. Violent J gave us an endorsement video. A good mutual friend of ours, James Storm, who's a wrestler, hooked us up. He's friends with Joe. I've spoken to Joe about the movie. I sent it to him. I have gotten no specific reaction from him. So I'm not like 100% sure whether he has or hasn't. He's been very supportive of the movie, and you know, has always said, you know, positive things, at least in my experience when I spoke to him. And then Joey, who's Shaggy, I know at least watched most of the movie. He talks about it on his podcast. And I know the people around him were like his other people on the podcast were really big fans of it. And then we, as far as like Ouija Mac, who's like, he's like the new kind of the younger, like, you know, Insane Clown Posse. And then like Ouija Mac is kind of the second, he's like the kind of new generation of juggalos are really into Ouija Mac, and a lot of his followers call themselves Thuggalos. And Ouija Mac has 2 songs in the movie.
Oh.
At the beginning, Walking What the Fuck and in Spring Valley. And so we licensed those songs, and I was like, you know, a big fan of like what he was doing. And anyway, I sent him the movie through his manager, and like kind of kept following up with the manager, like, hope you guys like it and whatever. And I didn't hear anything. And then I was at the Gathering this year, the 24, and I was backstage, and I see Ouija Mac, and he came up to me and he's like, "Aren't you the guy who made Off Ramp?" And I was like, "Yeah." And so he was like, he told me how much he loved the movie and like how connected he was, and he told me he cried watching it, and he's like, "You get this more than I've ever seen." He's like, to have Silas in his room, you know, acting like he's about to rob a bank, listening to my music, like, you know, with the drugs and the guns, and then to walk over and to take care of Meemaw. He said, that is what a juggalo is. He's like, that kind of thing of you know, like this image of yourself and this thing, and then to go and care for Meemaw. He was like, that was a thing. And he also was a big supporter of the trans character and the transness there, because he said too, he was like, you know, I have homies who are gonna like cry at that because they have those same scars and they have that same, you know, experience. And so that was really, he's been awesome. All of the psychopathic and all those folks have been really great. But Ouija has been like a really big supporter, and we're just so grateful for.
Yeah.
Well, that's really cool to hear. I love how decentralized the Juggalo movements, at least from what I can tell. They're like not using it to like, you know, let's mobilize our people to do this or that. It's just come on, do your thing. Just as I'm thinking through this, is the Gathering an official like by the band event, or is it completely separate from the band?
No, they actually do it themselves. It is not like it's not like some other corporate something or whatever. It is literally Psychopathic Records and Insane Clown Posse themselves puts it on themselves, and they often lose money on it from what I understand, or break even or get close, but they it's something that they do every year and is a big part of their culture. And it really is very much like a pilgrimage to a lot of these people. I mean, I remember being at the gathering in 21 and somebody telling me that they hitchhiked for seven days to get to the gathering. There's somebody who they were like, oh, we drove 36 hours straight from Seattle, Washington just to get here in whatever, and this is home, and this is whatever. And there really is something really unique about going there that you're just you don't, I don't know, it's something else. It's just this thing of these folks who come from all these walks of life and who are just put this just want to be at this one place at this one time, and it's really beautiful.
That is. There's a couple lines I'm curious about. So I think it was 3 times the characters chant "ice cream, you scream, we all scream for ice cream." And again, I'm new to the whole Insane Clown Posse in general, so I did some googling and I didn't find that was a lyric or anything. Is there a connection outside of that, or is that just something you put in the script, or how'd that come?
Oh no, it's definitely there's definitely I'm sure you can tell from the movie posters behind me and from the movie that you watched that I am a massive cinephile and nerd about movies. And it's a direct reference to one of my favorite movies, but is not in the Juggalo sphere at all, but Down by Law by Jim Jarmusch. They're all sitting, all of them are in prison, and Roberto Benigni, he's they're reading through his phrase book of English phrases, and he comes across ice cream, you scream, you all scream for ice cream. Everybody starts chanting it. The whole jail starts chanting it. And I don't know, I just always thought that was such a cool moment in the movie. And so I don't know, I just took it and thought, let's just put it in our movie. And it came out working pretty well, I think.
Yeah, because it's the kind of thing that kids, it's kind of a childish chant, but you're kind of weaponizing it in a way that I thought was very kind of flipping that on its head.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, no, I think it is kind of cool too, because the way they sort of Silas uses it in a sort of weaponized manner, and it's sort of his defense mechanism, when he's nervous,
yeah,
he sort of says it at times, or when he's angry too, so. And then by the third time, it kind of becomes this other thing, because they basically get Gavin to distract him, and it's kind of how they manage to get Gavin. And I mean, I'm a huge fan of callbacks. I mean, I love a good callback, as you can see.
Yeah. And then the other one that really struck me is the happiness is not always fun.
So another just steal from a better movie than maybe not better, but another great movie. Let's put it that way. It's from a film called Ali, Fear Eats the Soul by Rainer Werner Fassbender. And I watched that film when I was it was a really dark time in my life. And it actually comes up as a very first thing in the movie. It's this title card that right at the front says, "Happiness is not always fun." Of course, it says in German. But I don't know. I mean, that fucking line hit me like a ton of bricks. You know what I mean? I was just I guess we always think that happiness is easy and fun, and it's something that just comes so effortless, and to really think about the idea that you really have to work at this and try, and going through therapy and all these things, and realizing that kind of stuff. Again, it was just one of those things that it struck me so hard in my life that I felt, well, let me share this with other people. And I think it's really, and again, the Carnival Provides is another one, but all those sort of phrases that these things that kind of get repeated a few times, repeating phrases has a lot of power. And especially with the happiness and always fun, multiple characters say it, and it kind of in the end, it kind of means something else, but it's a reminder that you know what, you have to work at being happy. You can't just expect it to happen. And it's not just it's not just don't take it for granted, you know what I mean? So and like I said, it really touched me, and so I just felt I just sharing it with other people.
Yeah, I mean, that's something that's been echoing in my head since I first saw that. So it's a really powerful line.
It really is.
And then, the main theme of this movie really is family. If I was thinking about it, like, how would you, this isn't a horror movie. I won't say it's a crime drama. If anything, it's like, it's really a family drama in its own,
Mm.
on its own terms. And there's just so many lines about family, and not as a blood family, but as your found family, your chosen family, which I think is becoming a more popular concept in film, especially like I think a lot of people talk about like Guardians of the Galaxy. It's kind of like finding your family. And then at the end of the film, I don't want to give away too much, but they kind of create their own nuclear family, as like a metaphor, in ways for like it's kind of the snake eating its tail. So they're talking about family, and then they end up creating a literal family.
Yeah, absolutely. Scott, do you have a good way you like to talk about the movie as a family movie?
I do.
Scott, I've heard you refer to it as if Quentin Tarantino made a family movie.
Yeah, sorry, my dog is barking like crazy. Yeah, that's what I tell people. It's like, if Quentin Tarantino made a family movie, this would be it. And that seems to help people. They're like, oh, I get it now. Okay, I see.
I've also heard people describe the movie as wholesome, which I never expected when we wrote it. And when we started shooting it, I never expected wholesome to come out of people's mouths in reference to our film. But then I think it's interesting because looking back at it, it actually is kind of wholesome because it really is truly like about joy and love and acceptance, and like and I'm like, I'm not the kind of guy to make a happy ending. I mean, I don't like, my favorite movies aren't movies with happy endings necessarily, but it comes out that way. But I'm also a bit of I'm a big fan of like I said, big movie nerd, and like movies like Raising Arizona or Wild at Heart, or like these kind of movies that are like a little bit of everything. They're kind of like they like Wild at Heart is maybe my favorite movie. My dog's name is Lula. And that's a movie that like makes me laugh, it makes me cry, it makes me like cringe, it makes you on edge. There's like all of those feelings. And Raising Arizona makes me feel the same way, maybe more laughter than, but still it's got that like kind of thing where it's a little bit of everything. And that's one thing that I was hoping, I was like pleased to do. Tim and I, when we were writing it, we were like, is this going to work? Like these tonal shifts and this like kind of thing. And, I think it did. So anyway, I mean, pleased with that. So yeah, it is. It's a weird, fucked up family movie for sure.
Yeah. I definitely like the term wholesome. And again, I just kind of did a dive like on Spotify and just did like best of Insane Clown Posse. And like, there is a wholesomeness to the chaos in their music, for music that talks about a lot about murder and a lot of dark shit, but I don't know, there's something, but there's like a sweetness to it. Like, we're just saying shit to be, and not even be like edgy per se, but we still love each other at the end of the day, which is kind of what family is in a way. You're all trying to work together with your own kind of, jagged edges.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, you all still love each other.
Well, and it's really about acceptance, right?
Mm-hmm.
Acceptance and non-judgment. So, there's this concept in Buddhism, I think so, called the temple dogs, right? And so there are these like big scary dogs at the gate to the temple, and you got to get past them to be able to go into the space of the temple, right? Love and acceptance and God and whatever, right? And I think a lot about those guys is like, and the face paint and all of the the whole Juggalo sort of design sensibility, right, of being really aggressively different is like, do you love me still? Do you love me now? How unconditionally can you love? And I mean, that was like the most incredible lesson that Silas taught me. I'm a transgender person. I'm an activist. I teach people how to be cooler about these issues, right? Like, I thought that I had really done a lot of work on my judgment of other people. And I get to Silas and I'm like, oh, wow, no. And even the Juggalos, I was like, wow, I still have a ways to go with this. And this was my opportunity to live that, to embody it, and to let it come through me. And I'm a better person because of it, like hands down. A much better person.
When you were made up, like with the hairstyling and all the other stuff, did you?
Oh man.
You went like to like you went to like
I had to
McDonald's
wear
or
that hair for 21 days. Luckily, we were shooting in New Orleans because that's not unheard of there. Like,
yeah, you really looked like you were from the Bywater. You just looked like somebody.
Yeah. But there were people. Oh man, I'm a very intuitive, sensitive person, right? And so we would like stop at like gas stations when we were driving or whatever, when we were doing the driving scenes, just to like go to the bathroom. And I could tell that people were having reactions. Like if someone had a reaction, I could sense it. And so then I'd be like, hey, I'm an actor. This is for a part. This isn't real. There's a truck full of cameras out the back, and they'd be like, oh, okay. And this one lady, she goes, good, because I was thinking that's a white boy who wants to die. I was like, yes, ma'am, but even that, like having to walk around in that, and I stayed with one of my closest friends and mentors. He lives there, so I stayed with him, and he lives in kind of a bougie area, and I'm like we're going out to dinner at like the bougie restaurants, like 1,000.
I didn't know that. That's awesome. I didn't know that part. I knew you were walking around in it, but I just didn't consider like going out to restaurants and shit. That is amazing.
The day I went to Whole Foods in that hair, man.
Oh my god, dude.
And again, so I was like, I had to live that reality of like, I was like, that hair put me as like a super, super outsider even in New Orleans. Like to be an outsider in New Orleans, you got to be pretty far out there. Do you know what I mean? And to come up against people's, I don't know what you even call it, force fields of bias, and nothing ever happened. There was one time Ashley and we got done real late and we were hungry, and we went to we went to some convenience store, and it was like 2:00 in the morning. And we were just grabbing stuff, and people were it was that time of the night where where it starts to turn, you know what I mean? Where everybody's drunk and it starts to go. And Ashley was like, we need to get you out of here as soon as possible. This is not safe for you. But luckily nothing worse happened.
There's a famous story of when they were filming one of the Friday the 13th movies, and Kane Hodder, who plays Jason, was in makeup and everything, and he actually got injured doing one of the stunts, so they had to take him to the hospital. Well, of course, he's in all the prosthetics and everything, and the nurses were freaking out that he had like all these other cuts. So they couldn't tell the difference between the real injury and the makeup. And he said like they even like tried to start suturing one of his like fake cuts through his makeup into his real flesh, and it was the whole thing.
Wow,
it's wild.
Filmmaking, man, filmmaking.
I know. I would touch on something that Scott said about being a better person after like this movie and learning. Just again, like I wouldn't even consider myself as like the same way that Scott is, right? Like I wouldn't be as elevated as that, but I still learned, even though I wrote this movie and whatever, that like I had my own biases and prejudices that as the movie was made, we started to like lift those things. And I'll always say, I mean, the greatest compliment that anyone has given me about this film was after the New Orleans Film Fest. This young man came up to me and said, watching this movie made me want to be a nicer person. And I was just so touched by that. And I said, making this movie made me a nicer person, which it did. There's no question about that. And just hearing that it also had that effect on someone else is just amazing. So, just to touch on that it's just like, it's such a gift that someone gave back to us,
That's really cool. There's one other line I want to ask about. I'm paraphrasing because I didn't have a chance to write down exactly, but it's about the, if I look into my enemy's face, I don't see my own, I don't know myself or my enemy.
If I look at the enemy, if I see myself and not my enemy, then yeah, exactly. I'm fucking it up now too. So some of those quotes and some of the voiceover was inspired by another wild story. See, one of the things is that as they tell the story about this film, is that the carnival provides is this phrase that like continued to permeate the movie, like in reality and behind the scenes too. I mean, like, just I'll give you a couple of for instances, but one of these was that there's this guy, while I'm writing the movie, a friend of mine starts sending me like memes, and one of the memes is from this account on Instagram called Fake Shaggy 2 Dope. And Fake Shaggy 2 Dope would have these memes that would be pictures of Shaggy 2 Dope, but then there would be these sort of pithy, like Buddhist like sayings. If I can look my enemy in the eyes and I don't see myself, then I understand neither myself nor my enemy is a thing. And that was one of those phrases that was in the Fake Shaggy 2 Dope account. And there were all these other, you know, these great ones, you know, there's tons of these sayings. And at one point I realized that the movie, like when we decided we want to do the voiceover, you know, I wanted it to be like very Terrence Malick, you know, I wanted it to be very like Badlands or Days of Heaven. And I always joke with Tim, I was like, we're trying to make the Terrence Malick Juggalo movie. And I don't know if we did exactly that, but whatever, but it's there. And so these kind of phrases, these pithy philosophical sayings, you know, started to kind of come up more and more. So I was really interested in this. And so during Hurricane Ida, which happened a couple years ago, you know, I see this Fake Shaggy 2 Dope account and they post a story from New Orleans, like from the storm. And I was like, whoa, holy crap, Fake Shaggy 2 Dope is in New Orleans. I'm like, I thought it was, you know, a national account. So I messaged him and I was like, I love your work. I'm like writing this Juggalo movie. And like, every time I see this stuff, it's so touching. And he writes back and he's like, oh, I'm a big fan of your work too, Mr. Tape. And I'm like, what the fuck is going on? And it turns out it's this guy named David Bear who I had worked with years before. And he would like, you know, he's like a filmmaker and he's a guy who I shot a music video for him and this other guy, Jason Foster. And like, I was like, oh my God, I can't believe how this is working out. I was like, I would love to use some of your phrases, you know, in the film. And he was like, absolutely. He's like, that's one of the things about Fake Shaggy 2 Dope is I feel like, you know, ideas belong to all of us. They're part of the collective unconscious. They don't belong to any of us individually, which I thought was really cool. So I, you know, started integrating those, and then we would like kind of rewrite some of them and, you know, do our own kind of versions. I mean, also ones like, you know, they're all throughout the film. The thing that's written on the mirror, you know,
the greatest gift I can give myself is calm amongst the
chaos. That's another one, you know, and there's all these great things. So we kept taking those and integrating them into the thing. And it kind of just became this, you know, and that's really what the film is too. It's like a pastiche of all these ideas and all these things. And I think that's why it works, because it's kind of like all these great thoughts and ideas from all these different disparate sources kind of all going in together.
Which again ties back to the Insane Clown Posse music, where like it's there's all this picture dressing of this like really rough, aggressive, with all these like wholesome ideas underneath, where the movie, if again on paper, is a very violent, you know, off-putting ideas, but in practice it's, like you said, wholesome.
Yeah, I mean, we at New Orleans Film Festival, they made us do trigger warnings, and there were 15 possibilities, and we clicked off 13. And like there were literal, like there's a woman a literal Karen. Her name is Karen, middle-aged white woman from New Orleans, like, you know, wealthy white woman. And she was like, I did not think I was going to like your movie. I just looking at the pictures and the like whatever trigger warnings, I thought I was going to be, you know, turned off. But she was like, it was my favorite film on the festival, and I was so touched, and it was like all these things, and I was like, oh, well, you know, that's good. And I'm glad I'm glad that happened. You know, it can be touching even if you are gross. So I think that's the other thing about like, is, you know, horror movies, like, you know, this is a horror movie podcast sort of, and like we all genre horror film is another place. It's another found family, I think. You know? And I experienced that a lot in the film festivals, that a lot of these other places, it's like, I think it's the thing that Juggalos are doing. I think we all do. We just don't articulate it as clearly as they do. we find our groups of people, we find the things that, like the music that binds us, the movies that bind us, the art that binds us, whatever. And we, that does like dictate how we, you know, live our lives, but we may not be as like intentional and direct about it as they are. And I think that's one of those things that I admire so much about Juggalos is they're like, no, this is where we're going. And they're like, oh, wow, like you articulated that so clearly.
Yeah. I mean, there was 2 other lines that really hit me hard where Eden says, I just want to be loved for a second. That's just like such a, just tears your heart out moment that someone just can't feel any love and just wants a sliver of that, even if it is, you know.
Yeah, no, and Ashley just kills it on the delivery. It's really great. I mean, that was one I just, every time she says that, I mean, forever and ever, every time I watch the movie and hear her say that, I will get teary. It's just no doubt.
Yeah. And then the one that I thought was sneaky interesting, and I don't want to, again, don't want to give major spoilers, but there's a character who's trying to get away from a family member and says, I don't want to be part of this family anymore, or your family. And she didn't say you. Get away. I don't want to be with you anymore. I don't want to be with this family anymore.
Yeah. I don't want to be a part of your family anymore, you know? Yeah, I mean, I think it was that, again, I mean, you know, like you said too, and if you know her circumstances, you know, even that is part of the family metaphor and discussion, right? And I think that was our hope and our intent, is to make something that's artistic and to try to click on a number of levels of family, and to say that it's not, you know, one. I mean, the other one that I always love and is in the trailer too, and Ashley says, and she's like, you know, family ain't exactly a good thing for everybody. And, you know, a lot of people have told me after the fact how much that really connected with them. And, you know, to me, it was like writing it seems so kind of like natural. But then hearing it afterwards and hearing how people, you know, reacted to that, I thought, you know, it is true. I think, you know, there's a part of us, even no matter how much you love your family, there's a certain part in a time as you grow where you have to kind of move on from them and create your own. And I think that's, again, is so human and so real, you know?
Yeah, very much. All right. Well, where can people find the movie? Let's start with that.
Well, first of all, you can go to our website at offrampfilm.com, and there is a watch tab where you can click on all of the various places that you can watch the film, which are any of the major places that you can buy or rent movies. That would be Amazon, Apple TV Plus, Vudu, Roku, YouTube, etc. You can buy or rent it on all those places. You can buy the DVD on Amazon or Walmart, which is there as well. We do have a Blu-ray that will be coming next year in May with tons of special features from Refuse Films. And in the next 30 or so days, we will probably find a home on another streaming service that won't be the transactional VOD, but it'll be what they call AVOD, and that would be like a Tubi or you know, Hulu or someone like that. We'll see what happens. So we are looking forward to that as well. So you can find it all there, and also all of our socials are Off Ramp Film on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, Facebook, Off Ramp Film, at Off Ramp Film, everywhere. Please look at it. Also, reach out to us there. Like, we all answer a lot of those DMs. And if the film, that's how Jason and I connected. He made a comment about how much he enjoyed the film. I reached out and said, hey, let's do a podcast, you know, because this is so great. And, you know, you get it's such a rare thing to be able to connect with the people who connect with your film. And it's something I'm just so grateful for, those opportunities to talk to people who love what we did. And we just, you know, we're all just so grateful for that.
Yeah. And then Nathan, what's next for you? Do you have another project lined up, or what are you working on?
Yeah, we have a couple. Tim and I have written, we've written 2 scripts that we're still kind of like refining, but they're both really cool. And then we've got a couple other ones in the pipeline. But we're looking at making another film in 25. So be on the lookout for whatever we're doing. We'll see. It's highly likely to involve the other folks that you see here. We would love working with them. We'd love to continue to work with them. So that's something that we'll keep doing. I also just started teaching at Loyola University here in New Orleans. So I'm teaching this semester and next, and we'll see if I continue doing that.
All right. And then Jared, where can people follow you, and what do you have coming up?
Man, Instagram's the only place I'm active. It's all lowercase MR_Bankens, BANKENS. Right now, streaming just came out as the new NCIS Origins. I play a really fun, cool, recurring guest on there. I have a couple movies coming out. I cannot talk about either one of them. And a series I'm about to start that also I will be putting updates on Instagram about soon, but I can't say anything. But it's stuff in there in the works, and it's fun. It's fun. Cool.
Let's just say you're about to get real sick of seeing Jared Bankens' face because you're about to see him all over the place.
Well,
unfortunately,
speaking of faces, according to IMDb, one of your upcoming films is a remake of Faces of Death.
Oh yeah. Oh my God, I forgot about that. Oh my God. So
I am fascinated by this idea.
Oh my God, what's so funny is I was expecting, and this is not a negative thing about it at all, but the whole time I kept expecting that it was going to be just like the old one. I was like, oh cool, so it's going to be like, it's going to be almost like a series of different, recreations of these things. We're going to make them super real. And it's not like that. It does utilize that, but in a very different way. But I play totally against what my normal type is. I am a content moderator of this company, and my name is Tom. It is very nerdy, very goofball, weird character. But yeah, as soon as you brought it up, it was one of those, like, it happened right before. It was literally right before the strike, and then things got weird during that time. But somebody else brought it up the other day. They were like, whoa, I was doing this horror film in Atlanta. And that's what one of the producers said. He's like, wait, you were in the new Faces of Death? I was like, oh, shit, I was. I was like, yes, I was in that. It was fun. It's different. But it's if you want it to be like the original, you will be disappointed, though. I will say that.
I mean, the original is such a singular
but it
experience.
is very violent.
Yeah,
it's like you can't recreate that. You have to do something loosely based around it.
Yeah, I mean, the original is like one of those like.
Oh
things
yeah, dude. No, we were.
Go ahead.
I wouldn't allow. Like, there were kids who talked about they had seen it when I was in school, and just the idea of that is, especially the incredibly unorthodox childhood I had, where it was anything that was lightly sinful or devilish was just like, oh my God, I can't put my eyes to it, or else I'll go to hell forever and die. So now I like to play things like that. I guess it's sort of in my adulthood, that's some sort of rebellion against it.
Do you know when it's coming out?
Man, I have no idea. I have absolutely no idea. I hope it's soon. Because it's kind of like it has a very humorous aspect to it, but it is like it is very violent.
Cool.
No. If you like good violence, it's got some. I don't know if it's like, it ain't like Terrifier. I'll say that it's not as violent. It's not a good over the top violent like Terrifiers, but it's it does involve the original Faces of Death.
All right. I'm very interested, and we'll have to talk more when it comes out.
Oh yeah, that'd be fun.
I'm sure I'm gonna have questions. All right, Scott. Last but not least, where can people follow you, and what you got coming up?
Instagram's a good place for me. Just type in my name, Scott Turner Schofield, and you'll find it. It'll show right up. So what do I have coming up? I've got so my one-man show special is a project I was working on for years, and Nate ended up being really helpful, and one of our producers, Fabiola. I'd been working on it forever. It was kind of stalled, and Fabiola gave me the courage, and then was like, let's figure this out. And then Nate I just totally forgot Miles too. So Nate and Miles were shooting a movie, and I needed to shoot just for one day in New Orleans, and they took their day off and brought their whole crew to shoot what finished the rest of my movie, and also one of the most beautiful pieces of it. And so that just premiered at Out on Film, and it won the Audience Award for Best Film, which is really exciting. And now we're just sort of like waiting to hear back about more festivals and trying to find a spot for it to live, on a platform near you. So hopefully that'll come about in 2025. It's called Becoming a Man in 127 Easy Steps.
Yeah. Okay. I was going
That's
to
a
ask.
great title.
Yeah.
That's a great title, dude. I like that.
Gotta start
type that in. I want to save that because now I want to see it.
Oh, you can follow it too on Instagram. It's just the whole title.
I'm going to do that now because I'll forget.
Yeah, I saw that on your IMDb, and I was very curious about that. So I want to check that out. All right, we have one last our traditional question. We're dads for the crypt. We're a bunch of dads, so we always ask for dad or father or parenting or mentor advice. But I thought, given our subject today, I would ask for Juggalo advice.
Well, first, let me just say that shout out to my dad who is in this movie. He's the one. He's the guy who kicks out Silas out of the diner. Yeah. Funny story. Quick story about him is he wanted to add a second line. He was like, "What if I do this?" I was like, "Dad, it's not going to make the cut." And he was like, "But I want to do it." I'm like, "Okay, fine. I'm just going to cut it out later." And I did.
What was the line?
Well, he goes because he's like, "This is a family establishment, you degenerates," or something like that. He says like, "You degenerates" or something. And I was like, "Yeah, but it's a timing thing." It wouldn't anyway. It's just funny. But as far as Juggalo advice, there's a couple things, and I actually said this to you, Jason, in an email, and it's a phrase that I use in the movie. And again, so many of these things were from Juggalos in the way that they said things to me, but. Chris, who formerly went as Mankini, who's in the movie, and you see him a couple times in the Juggalos, when we met and I was just like so touched by this culture, he was like, you might have been a Juggalo and you just never even knew it. And that's one of those things that I think, especially like when I first started this and started writing about it, people were like, "Are you?" And they would always like snicker and be like, "Are you a Juggalo?" And I'd be like, No, I'm not a Juggalo. And now I'm like, fuck yes, I'm a Juggalo. I'm absolutely a Juggalo. Like, if to me being a Juggalo is not just about music, to me being a Juggalo means, are you aiming to accept people? Are you aiming to find your family and be, genuine to those people? And if that's what you're aiming for, then fuck yes, I'm a Juggalo. And I think that is a thing to think about, is that I also, another thing I'm happy to have said it sometimes is like, if you have biases, like bring them on to this movie, like bring your biases to our film, and hopefully, maybe we'll change your mind, maybe not, but at least we gave it a shot,
Awesome. Scott or Jared, anything you want to add?
Man, I don't know. They covered everything. They're so much better than this than I am.
Be like Jared. That's my that. I think the thing to say from this movie is just like, particularly for parents, is like, accept your kids, love them no matter what, love them no matter how scared you are of what they're throwing at you, no matter what you think they should look like or be like or do like, just love your kids.
Simple and easy. Love it. All right. Well, again, thank you, all three of you, for taking your time to come and talk to me and our audience today. And that wraps up everything. And I want to thank everyone for listening to Dads from the Crypt.
Thanks, y'all.
Whoop, whoop.
Whoop, whoop. Whoop.
Follow Dads from the Crypt on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, or I will follow you to the grave. No, seriously, you really should watch. But be careful what you ask for. You may get it.